Difficulty is a tricky thing to talk about in today's gaming ecosystem. It isn't tricky to see why, however, since the concept of difficulty is way up there on the list of things that are entirely subjective, but that doesn't stop it from being the center of many conversations. By now you've probably heard plenty of debating about Dark Souls and games like it requiring an easy mode for less skilled or more handicapped players to enjoy the experience, with those against the very idea saying that the difficulty itself is part of the experience. After all, with video games being a complete composition of visuals, sound, storytelling, and interaction, changing even the difficulty of a game could drastically alter the end result. But again, difficulty is subjective, right? What if easy mode for your little brother was just as oppressively difficult as normal mode is for you? Is the experience truly different at that point? This is something that I think about a lot every time I play Dark Souls or Bloodborne or really any game that forces me to die a lot to learn how to conquer it. The difficulty of these games is something that I personally relish and enjoy, and it's such a rush to finally conquer something that's been ripping your limbs off for the past hour, filling you with the pride and relief of overcoming an obstacle through sheer willpower and learning. But I've been gaming since I was a toddler. While I'm no MLG pro, as many people who watch my Let's Plays can attest, moving a character around on screen with a mouse and keyboard or a controller is something that comes naturally to me. I'm not pressing buttons anymore, I'm jumping, dashing, shooting, and slashing. What I'm trying to say is that I have the experience to be able to overcome a lot of these challenges, even if it does take me an hour. And most of you watching probably do too. But it wasn't until Cuphead came out that I really started to think about it and started writing this script. Cuphead, at its core, is a 2D shooter, similar to the likes of Mega Man or Contra. It also happens to be very difficult. It doesn't pull any punches. You have 3 health, 2 weapons, a dash, a jump, a parry slap, and a special attack for each weapon. That's it. It's incredibly simple. And while I would love to make a joke about the brutal difficulty of certain parts of the tutorial, other people have already done that far better than I can here, so go give those a watch if you want. Outside of weapon switching, the tutorial teaches you everything you need to know. Combine your jump and dash to overcome obstacles, climb down from thin platforms, parry slap pink things, use the free aim mode to shoot diagonally, collect coins to buy stuff. Like I said, it's very simple. And I don't want anyone to think that because I say that it's simple, that is a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with simplicity. In fact, in many cases, it can be far superior than something that is complex just for the sake of it. Hollow Knight is a great example of this. It starts simple and stays simple throughout the course of the game, and is that much better for it. Simplicity can lend itself incredibly well to difficulty as well, making it so that the only thing standing in your way is not memorizing all your options or controls, but rather executing and reacting to the various challenges that the game throws at you. And that's Cuphead in a nutshell, various challenges that you must master if you hope to move on and eventually beat it. It's presented innocently enough with the 1930s-inspired visual and audio design, which are both absolutely stellar and a joy to take in due to the passion that was poured into the game's aesthetic. But underneath the painstakingly rotoscoped animation that feels more like you're watching a cartoon than playing a game, is what is essentially a series of bosses that you must overcome to repay your debt to the devil himself. That's right, Cuphead's story is thinly held together by you owing a debt to the devil and being required to collect everyone else's debts for you to pay yours. But that's okay, because I'm pretty sure nobody is playing Cuphead for the story itself. It's all about the action, which to me is a fantastic amount of fun. As I mentioned, Cuphead is essentially a boss rush. There are a couple of run-and-gun platforming stages that exist, but for the most part those aren't nearly as fun or as interesting as each of the bosses are. Each one is entirely unique with its own special brand of challenges, different phases, and many transformations that are sometimes incredibly surprising and awesome to look at, such that you might end up taking a hit or two because you're so distracted by what just happened to your enemy. But this is where the difficulty comes in. You're gonna die a lot. And if you're not a very skilled player, you're going to get incredibly frustrated. And I don't mean that in any sort of condescending or elitist or hardcore gamer way either, because I don't think I'm particularly awesome at any game that I play. This is why at the very beginning of the video I told you how long I've been playing video games, to give you an idea of how difficult this game may be for you. I'm the type of stubborn guy who will keep trying and trying as long as I feel like I'm learning from what I'm doing. And I have fun that way. But not everybody will. And though this game is as difficult as it is, it rarely ever feels unfair. Once you learn what each boss and creature is capable of, every hit can feel like your fault. You can trace back your moves and think to yourself, oh, I shouldn't have parry-slapped that pink thing there, it knocked me into another projectile. Or I could have moved left instead of right to put more space between myself and the boss. There's always something to learn from in each death, as long as you don't panic and keep your wits about you. But again, even that unfairness is subjective. What I may have been able to find a pattern in or learn the timings of, a less experienced gamer might have perceived as chaos or unreasonable timing windows. And even for me, certain bosses I faced bordered on unreasonable, but I can watch videos of other people just flying through those same bosses as if they could see the future. For players who want to experience the game but might not have the skill to conquer regular mode, Cuphead does include a simple mode for almost every boss, where the boss's attacks are slowed down, made less complex, and where even an entire phase is often removed to make the game easier. However, this mode is missing for the run-and-gun levels, which, from what I could tell, are completely optional to beat, but are your only real source of coins throughout the game. And they're not exactly easy either. And yes, you do want to collect the coins, because with those coins you can buy different weapons to give you more options to face each of the bosses with. Certain weapons are better suited for certain bosses, so these are options you're going to want to have on you. You might have noticed that I said almost every boss has a simple mode. That's because you cannot face the final 2 stages of the game having only conquered the bosses on that mode. Simple mode doesn't give you the soul contract for that boss that you need to meet the devil, so you can't get in. So while simple mode does give less skilled players the opportunity to experience the game, there is a lot of content that's actually missing if you choose to play it that way. The final phase of most, if not all, of the bosses are often the most bombastic, the most weird, and the most exciting ones to behold, but simple mode doesn't even get to see them. Likewise, the 2 bosses at the end of the game are 2 of the most challenging and unique. And not to mention, they're final bosses of the game. So if you can't beat every single boss on regular, you can't even beat the game. That's why I keep coming back to Cuphead's difficulty. I don't really think that the game's easy mode is implemented very well. You get less boss phases, you're unable to beat the game, and the run-and-gun stages may still be unapproachably hard for some people. And for what's already a very short game, 5 hours from my first playthrough completely blind, I don't feel like it's reasonable to make so much of the game completely inaccessible just because you chose to play it on easy mode. I'm fine with hard games getting an optional easy mode for those who want or need it. If by including that easy mode, more games could be played by more people who otherwise couldn't play it, then that's fantastic. Sometimes people just want the experience at a level that they can personally handle, and I think that's okay. But it needs to be implemented well or not at all. Because of this, I can't really recommend Cuphead unless you're comfortable with the difficulty and don't think you'll need to play on simple mode. Because from everything I've seen, simple mode is really just not worth it. Unless, of course, you just really want to play the game even if you know that you'll never get anywhere with it. I guess that's always an option. It just really is too bad that Cuphead will be so inaccessible for many people who might just want to enjoy the artistic side of it for themselves. It's a celebration of the classic with simple yet difficult gameplay that harkens back to the arcade days, and a unique art style that's literally copied from almost a century ago, with each conquered boss leaving me thirsty to see what the next one would have to offer. It's a unique game and absolutely worth a play if you think you can handle it. There's one major caveat to the difficulty here though. If you have a buddy to play local co-op with, that will almost certainly alleviate some of the difficulty since there is a revive mechanic. You can only come back with 1 HP, but that's more than enough to help pile on the damage and tough your way through many of the bosses. And no, there is no online co-op. I wouldn't even want to play online co-op with a game like this, since any amount of latency would absolutely destroy this game with the amount of precision it requires. One warning though, if you're playing co-op, the Player 2 character Mugman likes to suck himself off before every boss fight. It's pretty graphic and explicit too. You've been warned. I didn't play co-op, but like I mentioned, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Cuphead and I'll probably enjoy it again with my friends later on. But it's definitely not a game for everybody. If you're afraid that the game might be too hard for you to enjoy, you might be right. But it's hard to say for sure whether or not that would be the case for you, since, like I said at the top of the video, difficulty is subjective, and everybody's different. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about Cuphead or the concept of easy modes and difficult games in the comment section below. And as always, thanks so much to my patrons for believing in what I do and supporting this channel. Be sure to like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you hated it, and subscribe for more awesome gaming content here in the future, and I will see you next time.